I'm here with my dear friend Jared Jaskot. He is a immigration attorney that does a lot of removal defense and family work out of Baltimore. Jared and I have known each other for a few years and have had the chance to work together in the past. He has done some incredible work. He shares lots of insights across social media, and I know that you've done a lot on TikTok over the last few years, Jared. I think you've got over 150,000 followers on TikTok and nearly 2 million likes across all of your posts. And you've helped thousands of folks across not only the Baltimore area, but across the country to achieve legal status. And really admire you. And I'm stoked to be doing the podcast with you today. Thank you so much for taking the time. Love to maybe jump right in and get it from your perspective. Like what first got you into immigration? I know you started as a defense attorney, and I know that you've done some work yeah, like across Latin America, Peace Corps. Um, Love to hear more about that and go all the way back. Like when did you first start thinking about immigration, and what ultimately launched your career as a lawyer?
Hey Matt, thanks for inviting me on. It's really good to see you as always. I really cherish time to talk to you on recording and off. So thanks again for having me. Yeah, so I started my career as a criminal defense attorney. I know your dad is one as well. And, for the record, I continue to think that it's sort of the sexiest type of attorney that you can actually be.
Hard though, and my daddy's become a little bit jaded over the years, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, listen, it's not going into jails, dealing with criminals, non-criminals as well, but sometimes people that really are some pretty serious criminals. That's a tough business and a tough client base for sure. And,
Uh-huh.
you know, potentially also maybe less popular than immigrants. So it might be a bit of a horse race right now over what group gets the shortest shrift.
Yeah, people ask
Um,
my dad, how do you defend murderers and sex offenders? And he always says, well, the Constitution is for everyone. But there is one population we're seeing that the Constitution maybe is not for under the Trump administration, and so pretty amazing the work that you're doing trying to help people that have even fewer rights than sex offenders and murderers.
yeah, I would humbly submit that your dad could say to them that it's better than voting for him.
I like it. I like starting it off with the hot takes. I feel like I feel like we can do this working in immigration because I haven't met very many. I don't know if I've met a single Trump supporting immigration lawyer. I know there are a few of those folks out there, and this podcast is for them just like everyone else. But I think if there's any industry where we can just talk about Trump in this way, it's for sure immigration.
Well, you know me, man. I don't really usually hold back too hard. Um, yeah, so I was a criminal defense attorney, and then I was started as a public defender, and then I
Mhm.
became a private attorney. And I was doing the work, but it did actually charging people. I had different client base, different dynamic. And in some places like Orlando, where I'm from, New York, where you are, attorneys that speak English and Spanish are really a dime a dozen. But here in Baltimore, that's not the case. So there's a lot less attorneys that speak English and Spanish. And so I started getting a lot of Latino customers, and they would inevitably ask me about their immigration cases or bring me their family members that had their immigration cases. And so, I was in the beginning, I would say to them, I don't do immigration. I don't know anything about it. But I honestly, after probably a year or so of them consistently asking me about it, I decided to start looking. And my law partners at the time were really actually pushing me for it. They were saying, "Listen, this is a market opportunity. Clearly, we have the ability to draw these cases." And so I started doing special immigrant juvenile status cases. Those were a sweet spot for me and continue to be my number one case type because they have a large state court component, which a lot of immigration attorneys don't want to do. And so I started doing special immigrant juvenile status cases, and I love the clients. so nice to help these young people and see their successes. It felt a lot different than criminal law did, and I could see the potential, for the change and how it would make me feel and what it would do to my practice. And I started doing more and more of those cases. And so I think that my journey from criminal defense attorney to immigration attorney has really come uh, from responding to my clients' needs.
What inspired you to do criminal defense in the first place?
I was in law school and I went to a talk for it was the first summer, and I was just trying to figure out what am I going to do? Where am I going to do my clerkship, corporate or one of these others? And a lot of people were going into high-paying corporate law internships, which
Hmm.
was actually kind of my goal coming out of Peace Corps. I was like, I need to make some money. I'm tired of being poor. But then I went to that
You did
talk.
Peace Corps after undergrad, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was in El Salvador, which, a lot of my clients today are Salvadorans. So that's worked out quite nicely.
How long
Um,
were you there?
2 years.
Amazing. That's
Yeah.
like that's as long as I was in Mexico for my LDS mission. I did. Is Peace Corps always that long?
Yeah. Some people go an extra year, but typically it's 2. And there were some missionaries I was in a village, but it pertained to a town, and there was a missionary in that town. I talked to him occasionally, but he always tried to act like he didn't really remember how to speak English, which it just annoyed me. So
There were a couple missionaries like that on my mission, and I was like, "Come on, man! I know you're good at Spanish, but I'm not going to talk to you in Spanish. We're gringos. We're going to talk in English."
yeah, I remember one time this guy it was he and I were the only people dining in this restaurant at lunch, and I went
Yeah.
over to him, introduced, and then he started with the I don't remember English thing, and I just picked up my tray and went back to the other, like, forget it. I'll just read my book.
Oh, that's funny. Some Mexicans, while I was down there, they shared with me that they experienced the opposite of that when they'd come to the U.S. and they'd meet like second generation Mexican kids that would not speak to them in Spanish, and they would get really mad, like, "You have to speak to me in Spanish."
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. Anyway, um, yeah. So I went to a talk in law school, and a public defender was there. And when I heard her speak, I was really inspired.
Hmm.
And she, at the end of the talk, said, "Hey, come to my office in Alexandria, Virginia." I was in D.C. It was a metro ride, and I met with her, and she was such a compelling character, and the work that she was describing seemed so exciting and fun that I decided to take a summer internship in her office. Uh, Loved it. Thought it was really great. Did the criminal defense clinic my third year of law school, and then became a public defender here in Baltimore for 5 years.
Amazing. And so you were a public defender, but then you went into private practice.
Yeah,
And how
yeah.
so? How long were you in private practice?
As a criminal defense attorney,
Uh-huh.
I mean, so the firm that I own now, started as a criminal defense firm.
Mm.
I worked for a private firm for around 2 years, and then I told the person I worked for that we were either going to be partners. I was going to start my own firm. I was tired of being an associate.
Yeah.
I had seen sort of how the whole business worked, and I come from a long line of entrepreneurs, and I didn't see any reason that I needed to continue to be an employee at that point. Um, so we
What do
became
you
partners, and
so
and off to the races.
um so you became partners, but that was pre Jared Jaskot Law. That was the previous firm then.
Well, actually, it's this firm. I bought him out, and then I bought another partner out. So it's still the
Oh,
same law firm. I've just been steadily buying shares in it, I guess you could say.
I did not know that. What was it originally called?
It was called Burke, Jaskot, and Williamson.
Oh, and so you did the rebrand when it became your firm.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. So I know we've got a lot of younger lawyers that'll be listening to the podcast, lawyers that are associates or staff attorneys in big firms or small firms. What do you recommend for a lawyer starting their career that has ambitions to own their own firm and to become an entrepreneur like you have?
Yeah, at the end of the day, being a partner in a law firm, and when we both worked for BAL, they had these sort of two classes of partners: the equity partners and the was it income partner? Is that how they
Yeah.
described it?
An income partner. I don't know how the term at other firms, but I know at BAL is income partner.
Right. And so, I'll just focus on being an equity partner. And at the end of the day, being an equity partner is really about your ability to rainmake. Your ability to rainmake is what allows you to look at the other lawyers in your firm in the eye and say, I'm going to own shares in this firm, whether I have to purchase them or I'm going to get them through some other way. And I'm going to be an owner here now, or I'm going to take my practice and I'm going to go somewhere else and I'm going to be able to generate the revenue that I need to support me and my family and my staff. And your ability to rainmake is what's going to make them, when you say that to them and look them in the eye, realize that, they need you or they want you and that you're valuable. And so there's the old school traditional three phases of being a lawyer, which is finder, minder, and grinder. If you can't be a finder, you really can't be an equity partner. Now, being a finder can take on a lot of different aspects, right? I mean, there's finders out there, they know two or three general counsels at big law firms. And those general counsels that are their close friends or associates that trust them, and they send them all their business, they're finders. They're bringing home a lot of business. And they may not be a slick talking, social person, but they are able to bring that business into their law firm. So finder can look like a lot of things, but at the end of the day, if you want to be an equity partner, you need to be able to generate business for your law firm.
That's a really good insight. I think when people think finders, they're often thinking sort of the business bro sales type. They're thinking the Harvey Specter from Suits, but you don't necessarily have to be on the far side of an extrovert to be a finder. If you have some tight knit relationships that can lead to big business for the firm, you're so right. Like that, that could be tremendous. I know that there are some firms that it's one, two, or maybe three relationships that could define over a majority of the firm's revenue, from small firms to
Absolutely.
big firms. And you have one close relationship like that, it could be transformational for organizations. Um, you obviously, I think you've done a great job in all three of those categories that you just described, and leaning heavily into immigration when you were seeing a need is testament to that. You were getting calls from these folks that needed help with removal defense or special immigrant juvenile status, and rather than turning them away and saying, no, I just do criminal defense, or I just do this, or I just do that. You were willing to lean into it and learn what it takes to do that kind of work. I'd love to hear like a story from the early days of practicing immigration law that inspired you to double down on it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's a anecdote it really comes, I told you I really loved representing these young folks. And it just continues to be the case. So, whether it's a really young child, the other day I was in the office and it was a young mother and her 3-year old, and the little child was playing with a toy that I'd given them while we were talking through the case. And just thinking about those two, as it's just, they're such heroes, these moms that are taking care of their kids and making sure that by the time they get to high school they're gonna have a green card. When they graduate high school, they're gonna be able to get student loans. The idea that they're not really going to know what it is to have lived as an undocumented immigrant in this country because of the tremendous sacrifice that their parents are making. And we're talking about single moms, that could be cleaning hotel rooms for a living. Some of them do construction, hard work. And one might not even think, how are they even able to pay the bills and pay an attorney? It's incredible the sacrifices that they make for their kids, and it's really what they do that continues to inspire me each time. And then seeing the pride and the happiness in those kids, and sometimes the kids themselves, they're 18 or 19, and they're out there taking care of business for themselves, hiring me as an attorney. As a 19-year-old, you and I, Matt, well, what
Wow.
were we thinking about when we were 19? Certainly not taking care of ourselves at that
No,
level.
no. It's really inspiring, Jared, and I really admire you for the work that you do. It's you will be a person in these people's lives that they will remember forever. And you are their champion fighting so that they can live here, they can work here, they can be united as a family forever, and you will go down as part of their family history, and that's like, man, that's inspiring. What work is more meaningful? I don't know if there's much work out there that is more meaningful than that, and it's obviously why that you've done so well in so many regards because you care deeply for the clients that you're helping. I know that some of these recent Trump policy changes have had a heavy impact on you, on your clients, and you shared a recent LinkedIn post talking about this and how it's weighing on you. And you went viral and started a discussion. I'd like to like sort of hear your perspective on that and hear how you're thinking about some of these recent policy changes and how they impact you and your clients.
So I think that my thinking around this started when I started to see the executive orders naming these law firms specifically. I think that at this point, I don't know if it's there been it's between four and six, I think, and then some of the other big firms that have stepped up to represent them. One can only imagine that they now have a bullseye on their back as well. And it's so interesting as a small law attorney because I've never worked for big law. I did do in law school. There's this thing called early interview week where you can go interview with them, and I did it, but in the few interviews that I had, it was quite obvious to me, and I think to the interviewer as well, that I wasn't a really good candidate for big law. But and big law has really served in many at most of the time to push forward corporate interests and big interests. So when
What
they became, go ahead.
I just found out what makes you think that you weren't a good candidate for big immigration or for big law?
Well, I don't necessarily like to, I'm not a person that I won't do things just because I'm being told to do them or being paid to do them. I have to agree with the idea.
Mhm.
As attorneys, I think that we have tremendous power and maybe even a little bit of magic. And I never have felt comfortable seeing myself as a mercenary, where it's just here is this amount of money and you're going to do this. And Big Law has a lot of that. I have a friend I remember who went to work for Big Law and he was very interested in environmental law. And as soon as he got in, he was starting to defend big pesticide companies' right to pollute waterways.
Mhm.
And he was just taken aback. That's not what he felt like he was in it for. And I would have a hard time with that, I think, as well. And I might also not I don't necessarily think that I would be very good at the big org and the moving up and the politics and all the other things that are involved. So for me, big law has never been probably an option.
I think
Um,
you and I are similar in that way. I think we're both a bit of maybe rebels and take a different approach at things. And I think that makes you thrive in a startup environment, in a small org environment, or in a more disruptive or role or company. I was talking to a lawyer who does a lot of litigation recently, and he told me that he sees lawyers often forget that their job is to question the law and to help argue if it should be law rather than just, continue to go through the motions. And I think like that is you to a T. Like you are questioning, is this how it should be? How can I represent my clients and make sure that the law works for them, and that it's just. Anyway, I like want to get back to your story and sort of your take on these changes.
Yeah, so we saw these big law. I was actually on vacation when they started. Some parts of them started to drop, and I was reading
Mm-hmm.
along. And I think that Paul Weiss was the first law firm that they came to the table with the Trump administration and made a deal that really felt like strong capitulation from a
Mm-hmm.
position of fear and weakness. And the entire bar, I think, was taken aback by that. And
And they made
now,
an announcement, didn't they?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They and now Skadden has fallen in line and done the same. And that sort of chilling effect that they would be willing to capitulate and be cowed so quickly, it just surprised me. And I think a lot of people. And then right after that, there was a sort of a more broad executive order about that was instructing the attorney general to go after any lawyers that sued the government or put forward claims that the government found offensive or in the telling of the executive order untrue. And they put forth examples of asylum attorneys. And then they had an example of supposedly a false claim from 2016. And now it had become personal, Matt. Now it felt like the directive was, we've gone after big law. Here's your next list of targets. And I don't pretend to think that I'm so popular or important to them that anyone would think of me specifically. But as a group, I certainly felt like me and my fellow practitioners that engage in removal defense and immigration and federal litigation against the government, be it Mandamus and APA actions, which certainly my law firm has engaged in a fair amount of. We're now next on the list. And compared to the Paul Weisses and the Skaddens of this world, we are, maybe even forget the Paul Weisses and the Skaddens of the world. Compared to every lawyer in the United States, removal defense attorneys are some of the lowest paid attorneys out there. And so we don't necessarily have a store of money to defend ourselves. And so it felt, and then I'm a member of a lot of different groups of removal of defense attorneys, and I started to see in these chat rooms people saying they were going to stop doing removal defense, people saying that they wanted to change jurisdictions where they were practicing. And I just felt like I needed to say something because it was so scary to feel that for doing our job, the essence really of the United States justice system is everybody getting an advocate. Now suddenly the advocates who, we already have all these obstacles against us, have this new obstacle of the government is going to prosecute us for defending our clients. It felt like too much. And I also felt a little bit of indignation against the organizations that were making statements. And I love the ABA. I love ALA. I'm a member of both. I'm proud of both. I work for both. Something about their statements felt insufficient to me. And what I wanted from them was a bigger and a deeper commitment to protect us if the government prosecutes us. Because many of us are, we don't have the money to hire an attorney to go against the federal government. And so I just really came with that on LinkedIn and wanted to see what this amazing community. I love LinkedIn, and what would the community say? What are substantial and real solutions so that people that do engage in removal defense and federal litigation and immigration can feel more confident that they can continue to go forward? And then we have a bit of a net. Now, one thing about it that and I still feel a little weird about is my clients are 10 times more vulnerable and have no net otherwise. And I don't want to feel like a whiner because I know that. But I am scared too. So I just
You're
wanted to be
you're
honest.
you're not a whiner, and you're right to feel the way that you are, and to want to speak out and let people know that this is scary for folks working in removal defense right now. I'm curious, what type of response did you hear from folks? Do you feel like after sharing that on LinkedIn, people were sharing solutions, sharing, what the best next steps going forward are?
Well, I was surprised at how the post went. I mean, I it was far bigger than any post I've ever had. Um, I know that you've had a number of viral posts, but I have not. And with a lot of positive stuff. I think it was strange for me to see there were a lot of shares,
Hmm.
and people would share with text, where it's like a post of their own.
Hmm.
And many of those were professors in other countries, law professors in other countries, using it to illustrate the point of the rule of law and due process in the United States and its erosion, and
Mm.
how the post was evidence of the fact that our entire justice system is in grave peril. And that really kind of, some of the that I would read actually would make me tear up a little, because somehow it made it feel a little more real that
Hmm.
people in other countries were seeing this, and their outside perspective of, this isn't just your fear, but this is what it looks like as a democracy, it gets destroyed, and the people that litigate within its justice system become terrorized. So that was pretty. There was a part of it that felt like I felt connection to the rest of the world, but I also, in a way, made it even scarier.
Did did anyone come to you and offer solutions? Did you hear from Ayla or ABA?
No, um, not yet. But I talked to a lot of people within ALA, and I'm not, I don't expect them to do something overnight. A friend reached out from the Amica Center, and they're working on something, and they put me in contact with some advocates there. I've been trying to figure out, Matt, like, what should I do to try to operation? Like, what should my next step be? How do I keep the ball rolling? How do I convene people, and how do I bring it forward? I'm not, a natural organizer, I would say, and I haven't done it too much. So I feel a little bit of, I'm not sure
Did you
how
see
to
that
do it.
letter? Did you see that letter recently from the scientific community?
No.
There was a letter I saw it on the New York Times recently that the scientific community, professors from across the country, they wrote a letter. I don't know if it was addressed to the administration, but they wrote a letter. I think it actually was addressed to the American people, and it was a letter saying that basically American science is under threat right now, and that they need protection. And maybe there's something like that that could happen within the immigration lawyer community, that immigration lawyers from across the country could sign off and say, "Hey, lawyers need to be able to practice, and to be able to continue to do their job without threats of prosecution." And maybe that's something that ALA or the ABA could organize, along with advocates like you or organizers. Could be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a letter, something, there's something about, maybe, I don't know why, maybe because I'm a litigator, is I just really want these orgs to sign on to something to say that they will protect us if we
Hmm.
get attacked, with lawyers.
Hmm.
The law firms that have been named and the executive orders that have had the courage to stand up uh, to the U.S. government in court have uniformly been granted temporary restraining orders on their behalf. They get to continue to practice. It's a clear violation of the First Amendment of the United States. And so that's really, what I want is the feeling that someone will do that on my behalf. Um, but and I so I need to figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
But I can't do it alone, and I need some more suggestions on. I need my next LinkedIn post. I need to figure out what's my call to action.
Well, I've got your back. Lawfully's got your back. Anything that we can do to be supportive, we definitely want to do that. And we, among the population on our consumer app, there we've helped over 2 million people to track over 5 million cases. Many of those folks are asylum seekers. Many of those folks are parolees, and so they are in this population that is under threat right now. And we definitely want to do whatever we can to help these folks so that they're feeling more secure, and so they feel like they have a path forward, and especially so they feel like there are advocates like you and other law firms and lawyers across the country who can represent them without fear of prosecution or any fear of government retaliation. So leaning into the some of the changes among the parolee population, the asylum seeking population, I'd like to hear your perspective on what we've seen, what we're seeing upcoming, and what you're recommending your clients right now.
So I am interested if you'd let me ask you a question about
Yeah.
what are these parolees. There might be no one other than the U.S. government that knows as much about them as lawfully, and I wonder, yeah, what are you seeing from them now that in some of their cases the parole has been canceled, in other cases they're fighting it. There's court actions around it. What are these parolee thinking? What are they thinking about what they're going to do next? What kind of questions and ideas are they considering?
It seems like the most common path that we're seeing, not only among the parolee population, but also among TPS holders and other folks that are in sort of this limbo stage where they have work authorization, but they don't have long-term legal status, is we're seeing if folks are eligible for asylum,
Mhm.
or at least if they're within their year window, they are filing asylum claims and they're filing 589. So we're seeing um, the rate of 765 applications tracked under parole, along with 589s, has gone up significantly in the last 3-4 months. And it's interesting to see that across different nationalities, there is a higher rate of 589 submissions. And so we're seeing that certain populations, especially the Haitian population, it seems like they've shared among their communities more urgently to get these forms submitted. And I know that there's been a lot of advocacy on certain nonprofits, especially the ASAP, to get work permits extended. So now asylum seekers are getting 5-year work permits. And so we've seen folks transfer over to a work permit from parole or TPS to a work permit under asylum. We've also seen that if folks are eligible through some other means, say they've married a US citizen, um, or they can transfer to another non-immigrant visa, we're definitely seeing an uptick there. We were anticipating a decline in filings going into the Trump presidency, but we've actually seen the exact opposite. There's been a massive uptick in filings.
Really? Wow.
Basically,
Technically
anyone that
speaking, the asylum office filings are a little more challenging for lawfully, from what I'm seeing.
which the asylum office, if they're slower,
Yeah. No, the tracking within Lawfully Pro. As you know, I'm a big Lawfully Pro user, and I love Lawfully Pro. And I've been using it for some of my affirmative cases, and it seems like that system may be a little more challenging than some of the other USCIS systems.
Yeah, we're doing our best to be able to get insight across all of the different government portals.
Yeah.
Um, we are pulling not only from USCIS, but also from DOL and NBC. And but we can only pull what the government gives us access to. And so we are also advocating on the legal community's behalf, as well as the individual foreign nationals' behalf, so that the government can continue to be as transparent as possible. We don't like seeing when web pages are turned off, when
Hmm.
the government is providing less information. We want to see as much information as possible, and we're continuing to build relationships with the government to encourage them to give more information out so that we can then give that information out to the community.
I really appreciate it. I mean, it's such a blessing, really, to be able, as an immigration attorney, to look at all your cases in Lawfully Pro and sort of see the statuses where they're at and have your alerts set compared to the My USCIS attorney side. It's night and day in terms of the amount of insights, the way that I can see it, and what I can change. I think, the only limitations that I'm seeing, like you said, are coming from the government basically turning off those 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 avenues of information.
Mm-hmm. And let's hope they continue to um, keep these as many of these channels open as possible. We saw a lot under Biden. We saw a lot of initiatives to bring processing times down, to advance more technology, and let's hope that at least some of those trends continue. I think the government, whether they are leaning towards more enforcement action, more scrutinizing, they will continue to have to lean into more tech, and because I, I don't think we're ever going back to a world where everything is paper and there's nothing in government's computer systems. So um,
Good,
yeah.
good. I mean, it's the paper, the mail is just it adds all this time and expense and environmental costs that makes no sense. So it's interesting to see that hear from your side that the numbers are going up. I do think that what I'm seeing in terms of processing times, on the asylum office side, it's a real nightmare in terms of processing times. Um, there's occasionally people that file and get an interview really fast.
Hmm.
The rest of the cases in my office, we literally have to file a federal lawsuit in order to get an asylum interview.
Wow.
Yeah. And clients are kind of like, what? Like, I'm like, I have to pay you to sue them to give me an interview? They get a little miffed about it at times, but, you know, I kind of feel like I use my certain set pieces, and this one, I just tell you about what the weather's going to be. I don't make it. So,
So we saw the administration announce that they're not going to be adjudicating for certain categories around asylum. They're not going to be adjudicating I-45s on certain categories under asylum and refugee. What's your take on that, and what are you telling your clients?
well, we don't really know any details around it. I think, so many of the things that we get, and I had a lot of clients call me that day, and then they were sending me all these different TikTok videos from different attorneys. And it's hard because it's tempting to make content, I think, around this. But a lot of the content I see has a lot of speculation and misinformation. And I try to help my clients understand that, you know, there's nothing in it. And it's not helpful to get so worked up over speculation and misinformation. I know that the advocates are tempted to do it because it gets them a lot of views and clicks and likes, but it's irresponsible. And in a way, playing into the administration's game of they make an announcement with very little details, and then we all rush out and make a bunch of content around it that kind of feeds into this attention cycle. That's not the game that I want to be playing, Matt. I want to be playing a game of solid information and facts and plans. And so to me, rushing out and making a bunch of content around each new announcement that's so light on details, it doesn't feel responsible. And I always think of this as, I think of the second Trump administration as like part two of a movie. Okay, it's like Trump, the Revenge. That's the current title that I'm working on.
Return of the
And
Sith.
exactly.
Oh,
So
Revenge of the Sith. My dad's gonna be very disappointed that I
the
just botched the Star Wars name.
the Revenge of the Sith. It's the Revenge of the Sith is here. And so, now that we get to, this sort of rematch, if you will, I personally am not going to play the game the same way I played it the first time around because I want to learn from my experiences, and I think that just playing into that hype is not going to be helpful. Now, if you have a 485 that hasn't been adjudicated, outside processing times, you feel that it's a good 485 and that you're being put into purgatory because you're adjusting on an asylum case that you won in court, you're going to have to go into federal court and you're going to have to file a mandamus action to get that 485 adjudicated.
And
And that's just a fact.
what are you seeing in these with these mandamus actions when you're going to court? Are you seeing that it's pretty favorable?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's highly favorable. I mean, I think, one's got to look, you got to know that you got a good case. You don't want to be in front of a federal judge with something that you don't believe in. But in our case, that's not a problem because we don't file 485s that we don't believe in anyway. So if you've got a good 485 and you go in front of a federal judge, and that federal judge is a serious person, they're going to take a look at that evidence. And if you deserve your 45 to be approved, you're going to get it approved. The one thing that I would say that is still highly unclear to us as advocates is this. In the past, when you've brought a good case into federal court, United States attorneys are, they are some of the best and most serious and intelligent attorneys in this country. And they take a look at this case and they see that you've got the goods. They do not want to go to trial on that. They will typically offer you a settlement and get that thing processed. Will that continue to be the case? I don't know. So perhaps these mandamus actions are going to begin to be slower and more expensive if we have to litigate them further along, to a decision from the judge, because it has been quite rare that with good cases we've had to take them all the way to a judgment. But perhaps we're going to have to, if the government insists on, their position, even, lacking really any foundation for that.
So we've seen a lot of stories about people being turned away and even detained at the border over text messages and social media posts.
Yeah.
How are you today balancing the influx of messages and inquiries from your clients about their approach at the border, and how do you balance the influx of inquiries around all of these changes with all of the casework that you have to do, and how do you stay efficient basically when you're dealing with these kind of questions?
Yeah. It's so hard, and a lot of our clients have a preference for phone calls, and they'll just call 8 or 10 or 12 times in a row, just banging that call button.
So
And
you don't answer, and then they just keep calling back,
yeah.
and they probably try and get
I've
your
gotten
personal
like
number, huh?
19 calls on my cell phone during the recording of this podcast.
Do you give them your cell number?
A lot of them have it. Let's say that. So and then like 10 people calling 10 times in a row, your switchboard's just exploding. That's hard, and they'll come into the office white hot, mad. Hey, I've been calling. It's a busy signal. I'm like, well, you and the 9 other yous are the. Did you leave a voicemail? No. Okay. Well, I don't know what to say. It's tough. It's they're frustrated. We're frustrated. A lot of people have suggested to me that there's some part of this that's good for my business. It's such a popular thing to kind of like wink at me and say, but it's actually good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not true. My brother sells refrigerators for a living. And I said to him, imagine if every customer you have ever sold a refrigerator to, or that that was thinking about it, calls you because they want to talk about their concerns about buying a refrigerator at some point in the future.
When you
They don't want to
contextualize
buy
it,
a refrigerator. They just want to talk about their fears about it. Does that sound like a good business problem for you? So, that's what we have right now.
yeah.
And then in the cases where we actually do have a case, there's no business in America that looks at their customers, forget immigration lawyers, and they say, hey, it's going to be slower, lower probability, and way more expensive. That's not a proposition that customers want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one that we have to deliver to our customers if we're being honest, because that's the circumstances.
So obviously, getting phone calls and getting bombarded with these requests is something. It's a big bottleneck for you. Um,
Yeah.
um, is it the biggest bottleneck? And if not, like, what's something that you would change if you could change something about the way that immigration works, the way that you are doing your practice, um, no constraints, no red tape, no budget constraints. What would that be? Excluding anything on the government side, because
No, I literally had 5 answers. As you were saying that, I was trying to think of which one I was going to say. Every one of them was a
Okay, okay,
change to
okay,
the government.
okay. Let's do one on the government side and then one on the not on the government side.
Got it. Got it. All right. On the government side, we have a problem of numbers, both in the
Yeah,
asylum office and in immigration court, that is just untenable.
yeah.
They're currently trying to make immigration judges have 3 trials a day.
Wild.
And that's they can't. It's too many. It's too many. They're not able to get to motions. They're not able to take the time they need to give the serious consideration to each person's case. And you're
They're probably
fatigued.
reading the information about the case like during the trial, right? There's like no time to even do prep work.
I don't know how they could not be.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they're hard workers. They're smart people. They're serious people, immigration judges, and they're
yeah,
doing their best.
yeah.
But it's not possible to do 3 trials a day. But
And the backlogs are just
even
growing.
this is where I'm going. Even if you can get them to do 12 trials a week, that's still not gonna crack the nut. They're still growing faster than they were. And so there has to be a way for people to win pre-trial. They have to be able to win their cases pre-trial. We have to give an option where you can, bring enough evidence to the government that the government can say, you deserve asylum, Matt, next. And if you have a government attorney that can look at 10 cases a day and make those determinations, then we can get some of these cases out that are winners, and we can let's get the winning cases on to the next stage, and let's get them off the court's docket, and let's let the immigration judges focus on the 50-50 cases and the people that deserve to lose, because there are some, of course, but going to trial and winner after winner is a waste of time for these courts, for the government. and for their attorneys and the immigrants. So we need to find a way for people to win fast and efficiently pre-trial. And that's the idea of settlement as a mechanism that can um, unclog the courts is not an innovative idea. It's the essence of how the law is practiced in this country. The idea that you would go to trial on every case is absurd.
Yeah, speedy trial.
Yeah. So there's my government. I guess I have to do something on my side, you said. Um, what change? The change I'm making right now in removal defense is, I'll confess it, let's say. I have been a person that has hated the charging by the hour so much my entire career. I've always done flat fees. Um, I believe that flat fees give alignment between client and attorney in that efficiency and velocity accrues to both sides. Whereas the hourly rate really, in a lot of ways, discourages efficiency and velocity. But I have become an hourly attorney in removal defense. And the reason I tell my clients is that my crystal ball stopped working. I don't know if your case is going to take 1 year or 10 years. I don't know how much work we're going to need to do. I don't know what the changes are going to be. I can no longer define the tasks that I'm going to need to do on your behalf in a discrete way that I can attack them efficiently. I don't want to come back to you and renegotiate our flat fee agreement every 2 months. It's a waste of time. So we're working by the hour now. It's great. It's a good lesson for me in the old never say never. And also, don't be so self-righteous about things you believe in because you may change your mind. Now, I've been using a lot of AI, as you know. I use all kinds of tech to try to be efficient as possible. I understand that the hourly rate, someone paying $500 an hour when they make $15 an hour is just like, it's inconceivable in a way. But that's where we're at. So that's a change
Yeah.
that I've made.
And I'm guessing that even in the hourly model, you are going to be one of the most efficient and productive removal defense firms and federal litigation firms out there because you're using all of these tools, because you have so much experience under your belt. And I know you were one of the earliest adopters of AI technology in this entire industry. You even started your own company, YotangoBot, pre-GPT blow up days, and you were helping attorneys to be more efficient with their work, especially around their communication with clients. Um, what is one tool that you implemented that has been extremely helpful when it comes to case flow efficiency and being able to take on more work across your whole firm?
Well, I think that we started this new company called Access 61 that is limited scope representation in immigration court.
Uh-huh.
And so by being able to tightly define the scope of the representation, we're finding that we can try to push everything into, for instance, we basically are only doing one thing, filing I-589 asylum applications for people.
Uh-huh.
And we're explaining to them that the beginning and end of our representation of them in court is the filing of this 589 in most cases. And so by being able to make the job so compact and repeatable, I find that repeatability is the key to efficiency. because every little step that we take, we can work on to um, just continue to chip away at getting it faster and faster and faster and faster. So, get it small, get it tightly defined. In the case of the 589, uh, begin to work on all the little steps. I don't see any, there's not too much magic in any of these things. It's just working on that process over and over again.
And what you're doing with Access 61 is a huge, huge innovation for asylum seekers. I have spent very little time in immigration court compared to you, but I remember my one experience in immigration court where 9 out of 10 of the asylum seekers that were arguing in front of the immigration judge did not have representation. And I
Nice.
know that your chance of approval goes up significantly when you have access to representation, but so many people can't afford the fees that asylum lawyers across the country are charging. And so to be able to do that work at scale, it's a testament to how well you have dialed in this process and how efficient you can make it. And I have been anyone that comes to us or to Lawfully that asks for help with asylum, we've been referring them to you, and I know that they've had a great experience. And yeah, for a lower cost than the traditional asylum cost, you can actually get limited scope representation. So it's incredible work that you're doing with Access 61.
Thanks,
Um,
Matt. I appreciate you all the referrals. Thank you very
yeah,
much.
and I want to end it with one last question. We have seen a lot of tech on the market over the last couple of years, both new case management systems, AI drafting softwares. But we're seeing that even with all of the tech on the market, some lawyers are saying that they still are looking for something more, something different. And so, if if you could design an immigration case management system from scratch, no rules, no legacy systems, no red tape, what's the first feature you'd build?
Mm. Oh my God. What is the first feature that I would build? That's I, I'm stumped. I'm stumped on that. I will tell you though, I will say, I, here's a piece of tech that I've been using the last 3 weeks that's been blowing my mind. And it's not immigration tech. It's just tech. And it's a OpenAI product called Deep Research.
So incredible,
Wow.
right?
I used it the other day to analyze, a long-standing land feud between the Tlapaneco and Mixteco indigenous groups in Guerrero for country research for a case. And the product it put out, I mean, now that I'm charging by the hour, I'm always kind of thinking about like when I use AI, how long would it have taken me, and how much is that worth to my client? And you know, I safely estimate that we're talking about a 2 to 3 hour savings.
Wow, that's great. That's like $1,500 for your client
Exactly,
right there. That
exactly.
is huge. I mean, that is the massive efficiency boosts we're going to see from AI. And it's why
Yeah,
people are talking about the one, two, three, 4 person unicorn companies, because with all of these powerful AI tools, you can do so much more with, a very small team.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as we can, how far are we away from being able to sort of add stacks of instructions and get this to a consumer facing, sort of situation or attorney very light? And
Hmm.
how can we, that to me is the way that you can make a high quality asylum removal defense come down from that $15,000 to $25,000 range into something. I don't know, what that is. Is that 8,000? Is that $5,000? And these are not insignificant sums still, but
Hmm.
they are significant discounts, and it's coming. The quality is high. I love it. My biggest issue right now is I just see it says to me, "You've hit the plus plan limit for deep research requests," and I go to their pro, and it's $200 a month. So we'll see, but
And
I love that deep
that's per
research.
per seat, right? $200 per seat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know I saw one report that was saying they're talking about like a PhD level researcher that they're going to charge $200,000 for. Like that was the initial report.
Yeah, I mean, look though, it seems to be working like 15 or 20 minutes in the like the work of the AI sometimes, depending on the question I give it. So, the server time's big. I'll see how it goes. And as far as your first feature in case management question, I think I'm gonna have to consider it. I'm gonna do a joint LinkedIn post with you on that. I think that would be that's a great post. I just couldn't deliver when put on the spot.
I should have given you the question beforehand. I put you on the spot. Well, Jared, this was so nice. It's always really great to catch up, and I appreciate you taking the time today. Where's the best place for the audience to reach you?
We love LinkedIn. You and I are both on there all the time. Find me on LinkedIn, Jared Jaskot. On TikTok, jascot.abogado in Spanish. And then access61.org for Asylum. We're working on some really exciting things there. Matt, it's always a pleasure. I'm so lucky that I got to meet you on the project we met on, and I'm really pleased that I've gotten to see you in your legal tech journey. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.